On November 24th, 2025, just before midnight, police in Indianapolis rushed an apartment on Turtle Creek North Drive after receiving reports of gunshots. What they found inside would shake this community to its core. A 26-year-old mother, Amanda Sheree Jones, lay dead from multiple gunshot wounds. And somewhere in that same apartment, crying in the darkness, was her 2-year-old daughter, completely unharmed but now without a mother. Now, before we dive deeper into this heartbreaking case, if you're new to Shadow Crime, please hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you never miss when we cover cases like Amanda's. These stories need to be told, and your support helps us keep shining a light on them. Let me tell you about Amanda. She was only 26 years old, living in the Brookwood apartments in South Indianapolis, just trying to make a life for herself and her little girl. By all accounts, she was a young woman who loved her daughter fiercely. But Amanda was trapped in something that too many women find themselves caught in, a relationship that those closest to her knew was dangerous. Her cousin, Denaja Ivy, would later tell reporters something that still haunts her. She said she had warned Amanda over and over again. That relationship's not good for you. You gotta leave, she'd tell her. But like so many victims of domestic violence, Amanda stayed. Maybe she thought things would get better. Maybe she was scared to leave. Maybe she loved this person and believed they could change. We'll never really know what kept her there. But what we do know is that on that November night, whatever was happening in that relationship reached its most violent conclusion. Here's what makes this even more chilling. The police had been called to Amanda's address before, multiple times. Actually, court records show a disturbing pattern of harassment, domestic disturbances, and even a protection order violation. Think about that for a second. Amanda had tried to protect herself legally. She'd gotten a protection order. But somehow, the danger still found its way to her doorstep. And here's the part that really gets me. Officers had been called to that same residence less than 9 hours before Amanda was killed. 9 hours. Let that sink in. The system knew there was danger. Amanda's family knew there was danger. And yet, by midnight, she was gone. When police arrived that night, they found Amanda inside her home, suffering from what they described as injuries consistent with gunshot wounds. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Can you imagine being one of those officers, walking into that apartment and finding this young mother, and then hearing the cries of a toddler in another room? That little girl, just 2 years old, had been in the home the entire time. She wasn't physically hurt, but the trauma of that night will be with her forever. Police did detain 2 people at the scene that night, 2 persons of interest who were there when officers arrived. But here's where it gets frustrating. They were both released. No charges, no arrests, just released back in the world while Amanda's body was still warm and her baby was being handed over to child services. Now, you might be asking yourself, how does this happen? How does someone get murdered in their own home with 2 people of interest right there at the scene and nobody gets charged? Well, that's the reality of homicide investigations. Sometimes the evidence isn't there yet. Sometimes detectives need time to build a case that will actually hold up in court. But I want you to think about what that must feel like for Amanda's family. Imagine getting that phone call in the middle of the night. Imagine rushing to the hospital or the police station, hoping against hope that maybe the news isn't as bad as you fear. And then you find out, yes, she's really gone. Your Amanda, your cousin, your family member who you warned and warned and warned, is dead. And the people who might know what happened, they're walking free. Denaja, Amanda's cousin, had to live with something that I think would destroy most of us. Guilt, not because she did anything wrong, but because she couldn't save Amanda. She told reporters something that really stuck with me. She said, "You can't let nobody else love you more than you love yourself. And I wish Amanda would have loved herself just a little bit more to walk away sooner." Can you hear the pain in those words? Can you feel the weight of watching someone you love stay in danger and knowing that no matter how many times you warn them, no matter how many times you tell them to leave, ultimately it's their choice? And then living with the aftermath when the worst happens? But here's what I need you to understand about domestic violence, because I think sometimes we judge victims too harshly. We ask, why didn't she just leave? Why did she stay? But leaving is actually the most dangerous time for a victim. Statistically, that's when they're most likely to be killed. And beyond that, there are so many invisible chains that keep people trapped. Fear, financial dependence, children, hope that things will change, or even just love for someone who hurts them. Amanda's situation shows us that even when you do try to protect yourself, even when you get that protection order, sometimes the system can't move fast enough to save you. The night Amanda died, police believe there had been a disturbance earlier in the evening. We don't know exactly what that means. Was it an argument? A fight? Whatever it was, it escalated. And by the time the clock struck midnight, Amanda had been shot multiple times in her own home. The very place where she should have felt safest became the scene of her murder. Think about her final moments. What was going through Amanda's mind? Was she trying to protect her daughter? Was she begging for her life? Did she have time to think about all those warnings from Denaja, all those times she almost left but didn't? These are the questions that haunt me about cases like this. And that little 2-year-old girl, what does she remember from that night? Child psychologists will tell you that even if she doesn't have clear memories, trauma gets stored in the body. She'll grow up knowing her mother was taken from her violently. She'll see the news articles. She'll hear the whispers. And one day, she'll be old enough to ask the hard questions about why her mother died and why nobody stopped it from happening. As of right now, this case remains unsolved. Detective Michal Dinnsen with the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department is leading the investigation. No arrests have been made. No suspects have been publicly named. It's been about a week since Amanda was killed, and somewhere out there, the person who pulled that trigger is still walking around. Maybe they're sleeping peacefully at night. Maybe they're looking over their shoulder. Maybe they think they've gotten away with it. But here's what I know about murder investigations. They don't just go away. Detectives don't forget. Evidence has a way of surfacing. People talk. Guilt eats away at witnesses. Someone always knows something. And in this case, with 2 people being detained at the scene, you can bet police have their theories about what happened. Amanda's murder is now part of a statistic that should terrify all of us. Domestic violence remains one of the leading causes of death for women in this country. How many more Amandas are out there right now, living in fear, staying in dangerous situations, hoping things will get better? How many families are watching their loved ones slip further into danger, warning them over and over, but feeling powerless to save them? So let me ask you some questions, and I really want you to think about these. What makes someone stay in a relationship even when they know it's dangerous? Is it love, fear, or something more complex that those of us on the outside can't fully understand? And here's the bigger question. If Amanda had a protection order, if police had been called multiple times, if her family was warning her constantly, what more could have been done to save her life? Where did the system fail? Because clearly it did fail. A 26-year-old mother is dead, and a 2-year-old is without her mom. And finally, think about this. If you were one of those 2 people detained at the scene and you're innocent, wouldn't you be screaming your story from the rooftops? Wouldn't you be begging to help police find who did this? The silence is deafening. If you know anything about what happened to Amanda Sheree Jones on November 24th, 2025, please contact Detective Michal Dinnsen at the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. You can call 317-327-3475 or email michael.dinnsen@indy.gov. Even if you think what you know is small or insignificant, it might be the piece that solved this case. Amanda's daughter deserves answers. Her family deserves justice. If this case moved you, if Amanda's story made you think differently about domestic violence, please hit that like button and share this video. Subscribe to Shadow Crime if you haven't already, because we're committed to telling these stories, giving voices to victims, and keeping pressure on unsolved cases until justice is served. Drop a comment below telling us your thoughts on this case. And if you or someone you know is in a dangerous relationship, please reach out for help. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. It's never too late to leave, and Amanda's story shows us it's never too early either. Rest in peace, Amanda Sheree Jones. We won't forget you.